Hi there, and welcome to my free masterclass training on the 3 secrets to healing your gut that your doctor isn't talking about. I'm Dr. Rodney White, and I'm excited to take you through this training so that by the end of it, you have a really good understanding not only of what causes poor gut health, but also what truly good gut health should look like, why it's important, how it affects our overall health, and more importantly, what you can start doing to learn and understand about your own health and the things you can start doing to fix it. Because we don't want you having to rely on too many other doctors or healthcare professionals. You need to be able to deal with a lot of it on your own so that you don't have to abdicate and delegate all of that. And it's actually easier than you would think it would be. Now, obviously, you're not going to leave this 45-minute training with me and know everything you need to know, not even close, but it's going to get you started on the path of understanding the fundamentals, and you're going to leave it with so much more knowledge than you already had. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dr. Rodney White. I've been a chiropractor for 20 years. I've been a health coach. I've been in the gut health space for a very long time. This is what I love to do. And again, I'm excited to take you on this journey. So before we start, I want you to think about the health challenges that you're facing right now. Just jot them down. Do you deal with obvious gut health issues like constipation, diarrhea, bloating, gas, those kind of things? Or are you dealing with other health issues like irritability, brain fog, mood swings, weight issues, anxiety, depression, headaches, menstrual irregularities? Do you dread your cycle coming up every month just because it's so uncomfortable for you? So, with these health challenges, as you jot them down, think about how they're affecting your life right now. And if you could go back in time, 10 years, 20 years, 50 years, depending how old you are, and tell a younger version of yourself how your health and your life is going to play out, would you go back and be excited to tell that version of you how it's going to be? Or would you be saying, hey, we're in for a tough road? So, depending on what your answer is to that, then I want you to think about where your health is currently. Even if it didn't get any worse, is this how you want your life and health to continue for the next years and decades? If it's not, then you're in the right place because it's time to start making change. And I don't care how bad your health is right now. If it's not terminal and you're not 6 feet under, there's always something you can do to improve it. That's the beauty of dealing with health. It's just like the old saying with planting a tree. The best time was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. I don't care if your health has gotten way out of hand and it feels like it's slipped away from you. Start today. Just start taking little steps. And I'm going to help you with a lot of that in today's training. And you can get back in control of it. There is always hope. So here's a client of mine who was struggling. She had a lot of stuff going on. And it didn't take long for us to work together for her to really start to understand how true health happens and how her poor health had got there. Because to me, one of the most important fundamentals that I teach is I don't want you to be given fish. You need to learn how to fish. You need to understand health so that you can be the one that's in control of it. Yes, you'll need people on your healthcare team, but you need to understand it yourself so that you then know if the advice you're being given is accurate for you or not. So as this client of mine said, Dr. White always teaches me about what is going on with whatever the health issue is, helping me to understand as I heal. It is so important when you work with doctors, chiropractors, health coaches, it doesn't matter who it is. If they're not teaching you along the way, then you're reliant on them, and that's not how it should be. You should be learning so you can eventually do it yourself. So it was a fascinating case. I still work with this client. At the time of recording this masterclass webinar training, we had done her labs about 6 months before it. So we'd been working for about 6 months at this point. 30 years old. On the external, looking at her, you'd think she was very healthy, skinny, works out, eats a very healthy diet compared to most people. You would just think she's a picture perfect health. She got hit with COVID and it really knocked her around, which didn't make sense because she doesn't have any comorbidities. It shouldn't have affected her. But when you see the rest of her picture, it all makes sense. She has a lot of gut health issues, which we know from some of her symptoms, like the bloating she gets with a lot of foods and other things, but also some other blood work. Massive migraine headaches, especially around cycle time, huge autoimmune inflammatory symptoms all the time, but especially during her cycle. But her normal medical doctors told her Everything looks normal. You have no inflammation. They had tested her high sensitive C-reactive protein, which you can see I've circled on the edge of this slide, and it measures at 0.4. Control range is anything under 0.9. So they were right just off that test that she doesn't have any inflammation. But the problem when we don't test the right things is that while high sensitive C-reactive protein is reasonably sensitive, shouldn't be called highly sensitive in my opinion, there's a lot of other inflammatory markers we test for that are far more sensitive than that and will show us what's happening years before that HSCRP will show up. One of them is this AA-EPA ratio. AA stands for arachidonic acid. It's an omega-6 fat. EPA is one of our most important omega-3 fats we have. We need both because omega-6 fats are basically what help us make inflammatory reactions when we get injured. But we don't want too much pro-inflammatory. EPA and our omega-3s are anti-inflammatory. So when we see this ratio, anything over 11 means that person is full of inflammation. So this lady is actually at 116.7. That is so high, it's almost off the charts. So no wonder she's having all these inflammatory reactions. She is so inflamed. It just hasn't triggered yet on some of her other markers. And so once we know the right testing to test for, we can show that she is actually truly inflamed. She's not just making it up. And then we also go looking for what's actually causing that inflammation. So just like that last client of mine, are you being told some of these things? Like whatever health issue you're dealing with is all in your head. That's sort of what she'd been told because they said, we can't find anything on your blood work. Everything looks great. And this is a very infuriating thing for someone to hear when they know their health is suffering, they know the symptoms they're dealing with, and they're told, oh, it's all in your head. I think any doctor who tells someone that, even if the person they thought was truly suffering from a mental disorder like a Munchausen's or something, then the symptoms are still real. So that should never be told to anyone by a health professional. Are you being told that you need medications? Now, in a small, very small circumstance, there are some medications that are needed to keep people alive. But if I had to throw a number out, I'd say 95 to 98% of all medications are given when they didn't need to be, if that doctor knew how to help that person get healthy without them, because the majority of people can. No one's unhealthy because they're lacking medications. It's just crazy. Are you being told that you've got symptoms just because you're old? Your joints hurt because you're old. You don't sleep well because you're old. You're frail because you're old. It's crazy. My parents are in their mid to late 70s and they still go to the beach every day and run and swim. That should be normal. So in my first year in chiropractic practice in 2005 in Sydney in Australia, I had this 96-year-old gentleman who used to walk to our clinic every time he got adjusted. He'd come in every 2 weeks and he lived probably the equivalent of about 2 miles away. He didn't have a walker, didn't have a cane, easily lived on his own, wasn't in assisted living. That shouldn't be the exception. That should be the normal. So don't ever let that one become a limiting belief for you. And remember, again, no matter how bad the health has gotten, no matter how old you are, there's always something you can do about it. Have you been told it's because you're stressed out? Well, stress could be a problem, but we've got to go and work out, why is your body reacting that way? We can't just accept that. What about it's because of your genetics? I really don't like this one because the scientists who study genetics, they have shown that somewhere between 2 to 5%, or maybe even less than 2% of all health issues are truly genetic. Genes load the gun, but it's our lifestyle that pulls the trigger. Now, some of you might have genes that make it very hard to be healthy, but it's not going to be impossible. Some people can get lucky and smoke all their lives and live to 98. That's not a good thing. That just means their genes enabled them to do that. But we don't want to roll the dice with our genes. We want to make sure we're living in a way that the genes don't matter, because no genes are a default or a defect. Maybe we've got them that way for a reason and we're just not using it properly. And then maybe the worst lie of all is it's normal. Well, because something is common, like most older people struggle with their health is common, that doesn't make it normal. So again, you've got to remember, this is like planting a tree. The best time was 20 years ago. The next best time is today. No matter how bad your health is, no matter how old you are, if you don't have a terminal disease and you're not 6 feet under the ground, then there's always something you can do to improve your health. You just have to start right now taking baby steps. And that's part of what we're going to help you with today's training. So my promise to you, by the end of this class, you will understand what the 3 main drivers of stress and inflammation are. And that's really important because every health disease we deal with is driven by underlying stress and inflammation. You'll also understand why you first have to heal your gut to have true health. You cannot have poor gut health and good overall health. It's almost impossible to have poor overall health and have good gut health. And this is especially true with autoimmune disorders. You fix the gut, you can fix almost any autoimmune problem. You'll also understand the right and wrong test to order and how to go about it, and ultimately how to start becoming your own doctor to take back your health and your life. Yeah, there's going to be maybe 5% of things where you'll need an expert to help you with. You'll need a doctor in your life. I even have different doctors on my healthcare team that I go to, because being your own patient isn't always the best thing, but it's for a very small percentage of things. If I'm stuck with my health, for the majority of it, just like me, you should be able to run a lot of your own health. And then stay tuned. After this masterclass, there'll be a couple freebies for you, some really valuable stuff like this, how to start clean eating for your gut health. I'll be talking about how you get those. Some of those will be coming through the email just for attending this class. There'll be other ones that you can get for taking action on certain things. But again, I want to load you up with as many resources as possible to help you on this journey. So the fact you're here tells me that you probably want a different life to what you're currently experiencing. And maybe your health's really good right now, but you just want to prevent serious disease before it comes in the future. So those two kind of tie in together. Maybe you just want a little more energy and confidence. Maybe you don't like what you see in the mirror. Maybe you feel like you need caffeine hooked into you on an IV drip, and you know that's not the way you want to be. So again, you're in the right place if that's you. Maybe you just know you need to heal your gut so you can get back to the life you love. All of those are great reasons to be here on this training. So as we move through this, I want you to start changing the way you think about your health. If your check engine light came on in your car, okay, some of you might ignore it for a few days, but the vast majority of us wouldn't just stick some tape over it so we didn't see it. We would eventually take it in the mechanic and say, hey, why is my check engine light on? Or why the heck are we doing this with our health issues? Why do so many people just happily try and stick a Band-Aid over them and ignore them, or go and medicate them? It's not the way to true health. And again, if you're on this masterclass training, it tells me you don't want to be living like that. So now let's revisit some of these health challenges. Let's think about them again. If you have headaches, irritability, you don't sleep well, mood swings, you're overweight, do you still believe that that's going to be your story for the rest of your years and decades? I truly hope not. And this is before we even start the training. I hope we've already flipped the switch a little bit there on how you think about this stuff, because you have to believe it's possible. Otherwise, it's not that you can think yourself to health, although there is a part of it that is involved with that. But what happens is you take better action towards being healthy when you think that way. So why can't we just live with the traditional medical model? Well, the traditional medical model just focuses on putting Band-Aids over the symptoms. We're sticking tape over the check engine light. They very rarely do anything to get to the root cause. And the medical doctors that do, if you'd argue you have one that does that, they've probably stepped out of the traditional model anyway for that exact reason. Traditional medicine burns, poisons, and cuts through medication, surgery, and other treatments. And again, that doesn't mean those things aren't sometimes needed. Thank goodness we have those when there's very acute, serious injuries or our health's gotten that bad. But that's not how we should be managing chronic health issues. It costs trillions of dollars. Part of the problem is that some of those dollars aren't put onto us, that, well, they are through taxes and things like that. Obviously, insurance premiums are very high in America as well, but we don't always see the trillions of dollars. Someone who's very unhealthy maybe someone who's going through cancer, that's on average about 800 grand a year of treatment. We're obviously not paying that. Insurance companies and pharmaceutical companies are getting a lot of kickbacks to make that happen. And they virtually can never make noticeable changes with regards to chronic health. I'm not going to say 100% never, but almost never. So in my opinion, the traditional medical model, or should be called the sick care model, and it needs to go down like this ship. It needs to sink like the Titanic. There are far better ways to manage health. And if we manage health properly, we'll only need a fraction of the acute care model anyway. And that alone could be changed in a much better way. So why all this fad about gut health lately? Why is this the new thing? Why does it matter? Well, it matters very, very much because we have this, what I call the triad in our body: our immune system, our nervous system, and our hormonal system. The three of those things basically drive everything to do with our health, and they're all linked. All three of them are linked. You cannot have a nervous system problem without also having an immune system and a hormonal system problem, and vice versa. So a lot of people are told when they're in the traditional medical model about things that are in a box, like, oh, you have a thyroid issue. Well, if you're told you have a thyroid issue, which is a hormone issue, are those doctors also looking at how to help your immune system and your nervous system and clean up your gut, because that's what's driving this? Or are you just put on thyroid pills? If you seem to be getting sick all the time, you keep getting ear infections or bronchitis or dealing with multiple bouts of COVID or the flu every year, are those doctors who are dealing with that for you and medicating you, are they helping you heal your gut? Because if you do, you're not going to get sick all the time like that. See, this stuff is so intimately linked and it just gets ignored. So why listen to me? Well, you certainly don't have to. I don't have all the answers by any stretch, but I've been doing this game a long time. It says chiropractor for 18 years. I'm actually in my 19th year right now. I'm a functional health expert, and I've been coaching people one-on-one and in group settings for a very long time. I've been studying what truly makes you healthy and how to increase your longevity, because it's a passion of mine. I want to live a long, healthy life. I'd love to make it past 100 to see my grandkids and great-grandkids, but I don't want to make it past 100 being frail. I want to make it past 100 still being able to do all the things I enjoy to do. Of course, I'm going to slow down, but that's the life I want to live. But even more importantly than that, why you should listen to me, I've been there where you are before. So a lot of people will say to me, but you're a chiropractor, so naturally you've always been healthy. You know all this stuff. It's simple for you. Well, not so fast. In my late teens and early 20s, even when I was in chiropractic school, my diet was not great. But the effects of it were hidden because I was young. I was metabolically still pretty flexible, and I surfed every day. You want to burn off bad food and bad diet choices like McDonald's and all the other stuff that I shudder to think about what I ate, you go surfing. Oh my gosh, it burns everything. So I was hiding some bad health habits. I then moved to America when I'm 29 years old, and in less than 12 months, I put on 30 pounds. I was the heaviest I'd ever been in my life. Started to suffer all these gut issues I'd never had before. I was bloating, I'd have constipation and diarrhea, then cramping. Then I started to get really poor sleep and I'd be exhausted all the time. I suffered from all of it. And yes, we can blame some of that on the food that's served up in America, but I wasn't eating much better in Australia. So that definitely shouldn't be an excuse. And so I dealt with that for a while, and then started to really dive in harder into my health research, because I felt like I'm a hypocrite if I'm teaching people health and I'm overweight. And so I made some decent changes, and for the most part was back to my normal weight and reasonably healthy, or so I thought. Then I blew a disc out in my back. And a lot of you might say, well, what's that got to do with poor gut health or poor overall health? Well, I'll show you later exactly how that's linked. And what's crazy is then in trying to deal with my disc that I blew out, because I knew I didn't want surgery because I'd seen all the bad effects of that, I started to eat even healthier. But my gut symptoms started to get worse when I ate so-called healthy foods. I was basically on a plant-based diet and doing what a lot of people would say makes you very healthy. We'll get into that a little bit later as well. So then I really made the conscious decision that, no, I'm done with this. I am taking control of my health, because the goals for where I want to be, I'm not going to hit them. And again, now for the most part, I was doing that much better. But life will sometimes still throw you a curveball or even hit you like a truck. And so what was interesting was the challenge that was about to face me. Little did I know it was going to test whether what I was doing was truly keeping me healthy or not. And at this point, I'd say I was probably 90% of where I needed to be, but there was still some testing and other things I hadn't done. And we'll get into all of that. So fast forward, and then I'm the eldest of three kids, so I'm very protective of my brother and sister and just my family in general. And unfortunately, at the end of 2021, we lost my brother to a very aggressive cancer. And when he got diagnosed in February and is dead by October, his death unfortunately was sped up by some conventional medical treatment, which we don't need to get into. But carrying the stress of the family and trying to help him make the right health decisions and all of that really put the stress on my body and my immune system, as it does to anyone. But my body didn't handle it as well as I thought it should have. I broke out in a full body shingles reaction I dealt with for weeks, things that I've never had before. These huge stress reactions that just shouldn't have been there. So I went and started doing more testing. So this is my heavy metals test. Now, according to standard blood work that a normal MD would run for me, my health was perfect. And when you looked at my weight, my blood pressure, all these things, my health was perfect. But that couldn't be further from the truth once I started doing the right testing to see what was going on. So look at my heavy metals here. Basically, everything you test for with metals, not only should it be in the green, but it should be as low as where that bismuth is, at the most where tin is, third from the bottom. I could live with that. But you look at my lead, my mercury, uranium, thallium, even aluminum, all as far off the charts as they can be. So I had a huge heavy metal toxic load among a whole bunch of other things. But again, this is why we want to test and not guess, because once I knew this, I could start doing the right health protocols to get rid of this garbage out of my body, which led to my health discoveries. No matter how healthy you think you are, if you have some underlying toxins and infections and key micronutrient deficiencies, then these are all harming your health every single day. They're running underneath the surface, putting a stressful load on your cells and on your immune system. Also, no matter how much you learn about health, you always need people on your team who can look at something with fresh eyes for you, not because you don't know it or you don't understand it, because again, I want you to all understand it, but we get emotional when we have health issues. You need someone there who's not as emotional, who's able to say, have you thought about this or this? And now by tweaking these certain strategies, doing the right testing, I have more health and vibrance at 41 than I did at 21. I've dealt with things that could have been very dangerous. I've had a melanoma removed from my back, and because of how healthy I was and all the things I've been doing, it was a simple cut it out. There was no spread. We did all the tests to make sure of that. My blood markers were all phenomenal. Again, certain things are going to happen. I think my melanoma probably came on with the stress of my brother's diagnosis. And then when you add in the heavy metals and toxins and underlying infections that I just had running under the surface, that allows things like cancer to happen. But cancer doesn't have to spread and take you out. See, when you put me and my brother together, I was already very, very healthy, minus those things I had to discover. He wasn't. And we look at the difference. It took his life. For me, it was a simple excision, do a PET scan to make sure it was all clear, and I'm fine. I'm back to normal life. So in my transformation, how did I get there? I dove deeper into the research to really understand what true health was. I went from terrible sleep and daily stomach issues, and like I said, 30 pounds overweight at one point, to thriving with more energy at 40, 41, well, busier than I've ever been. I run 6 businesses. I have a 6-year-old and I have a second child on the way. And I have more fitness and health than I did in my early 20s. I don't feel old anymore. My herniated disc, I don't even know I have it. And I didn't take any surgery, no injections or anything like that. Because again, I've calmed down the inflammation in my body. I've got rid of a lot of the things driving that. And most importantly, I can keep up with my, as I said on here, super energetic 5-year-old. But And she just recently turned 6 at the time of making this, and I'd already made my slides, so there we go. But it's so fun to have young kids when you can keep up with them and get moving. So that's the transformation that's possible for everyone watching this training. I'm no different to any of you. And so now my passion lies with helping others. I want to see every human on this planet rediscover their health and vitality. That's why I love doing trainings like this and going on TV and doing my podcast and speaking in front of groups. I want everyone to understand how stress and inflammation drives poor gut health and how poor gut health drives everything else, and how easy it really is for you to get that all back under control and live the life that you love. And that's what led me to creating what I call the aligned health model instead of the traditional model. We have to find the true cause. Then we can use research-based lifestyle and natural protocols to fix just about everything. I always get hit with, well, my child has type 1 diabetes, they need insulin. Yes, of course they do. But did you know that if you get their lifestyle right, you can limit how much insulin they need? They'll never go off it permanently, like fully, but you can limit it, which is going to buy their pancreas a lot more healthy years. So that's one of the rare ones where you still need drugs, but almost everything else you can fix without. And then we go and reverse inflammation and stress and achieve true health. That's the aligned health model. So you might be one of those people thinking, well, that's easy for you. You're a chiropractor. You already read all the research. Okay, fine. But none of it's rocket science. There's the research behind true health is really pretty simple, and it's pretty basic stuff. So don't let that ever be a limiting belief for you. Also, don't let this one be a limiting belief. This is a huge one. I don't have the time or the money to be healthy. Well, to that, I always ask people, do you have the time and the money to be unhealthy as you get older? We only have this one shot at life. Let's not waste it. And if you're already unhealthy, you can absolutely reverse just about anything and enjoy the last years and decades of your life more than the middle ones. So please don't let that ever be a limiting belief. There's so much you can do for your health. And then the other one I get a lot of is, shouldn't my medical doctor know how this stuff works? I have a couple of friends who are medical doctors, most of them who have left the traditional system because they were so frustrated with it. And I've heard from a handful of them, some had 0 nutritional training in school, some had 4 hours. Literally, that's all they get. They do not learn this stuff. But medical doctors can't know everything, and they have to know everything about their drugs because people can die and do die from those things. The top 3 biggest killers in the Western world are cardiovascular disease, followed by cancer, followed by medical and pharmaceutical error. So that's where a lot of their focus goes in their training, right, wrong, or indifferent. They just don't learn this stuff. So a lot of you watching this training who have already started your own health journey know more about actual health than your medical doctor. Now, if you're sick, that's where you need them for. But most of them don't know health, and the ones that do have left that system anyway. So the 3 keys to success as we really dive into the nuts and bolts of what you're going to learn today is be coachable and be willing to take action. As long as you're open-minded and you have a growth mindset as you come into this, you can expand the way you look at health. Doesn't mean you have to agree with everything I say, but at least it will challenge your old ways of thinking. Also, with health journeys, always focus on the progress, not perfection. So measure backwards, not forwards. Measure how far you've come, not the perfect ideal you think you should be, because it's unrealistic. And commit to never letting self-doubt stop you from having what you want, because that voice is always going to be there. You just have to squash it down faster and faster. So now imagine your life 6 months from now. You've learned everything I'm about to teach you about true health. You've done some testing. You've worked out what's going wrong. You've started targeting it. What's the one thing you would love to be doing that you aren't doing right now? I would love to get an email from you about, hey, in 6 or 12 months, this is what I'm committing to doing because my health is going to be so much better. And that sometimes we have to dopaminize our actions, because if we have poor health currently, we got there through poor habits. And it's okay to admit that to ourselves, but it's hard to turn those habits around. So we need to put dopamine to the future, meaning focus on something we would love to be doing and visualize that. And then when you have a choice between junk food and good food, you can think about what you're going to be doing in the future, and you'll choose the good food 99% of the time. So let's dive into the 3 secrets to heal your gut. That's enough ranting from me on all of that stuff. Secret number one, chemical stress. And let me preface this. There's really three stresses that drive all poor health. And they're the three secrets we're going to hit. Chemical stress, physical stress, emotional stress. All of them create poor gut health, which then leads to poor immune, hormonal, nervous system health, and overall health, and then all the disease and suffering that we all deal with. So what's chemical stress? That's essentially anything attacking us from the inside. That can be infections like parasites, viruses like Epstein-Barr virus, herpes viruses. They all sit in our nervous system and in our gut and in our body and stress the system over and over every day, day in, day out. There's environmental toxins like heavy metals, BPA, glyphosate, pesticides, but then there's also mold. A lot of people have no idea that the mycotoxins that we get in our body from mold are highly damaging to our body. Every single antibiotic and medication you take is damaging to the gut. Now, that doesn't mean you shouldn't, or there's some that you shouldn't be taking. We just have to know there's always a trade-off, and we have to weigh up, is it worth the trade-off that we're going to have here? Then there's the things we eat, like sugar and all those rancid seed oils, like vegetable oil, canola oil, soybean oil. They're so damaging to the body, and they're actually more damaging than sugar because to a degree, you can exercise sugar off. Now, if you're chronically eating sugar, it'll damage you. But let's say you never eat sugar and then you went and had a cheesecake, the most sugar-filled thing on the planet. You could have had a cup of berries or a whey protein shake half an hour before, and it would have stopped a lot of the blood sugar spike. And you can go exercise 15 minutes after you've eaten it, and you'll burn off a lot of that damage. But these rancid oils, they get into your cells and into the DNA, and they're in there for 3 to 6 months causing damage, and you can't burn that out. And then a lot of our household chemicals, all of that stuff is going to stress out your body chemically from the inside. And it's probably the most damaging of all the stress because it creates so much issue. So all of these, we call them toxins. And anything toxic to the body goes to inflammation, which goes to poor gut health, which goes to poor overall health. So we have to limit and remove toxins as much as humanly possible. So how can you do that? One way is download the Think Dirty app. Take it shopping with you, and if you're not sure about some kind of household cleaner or household product you're going to buy, scan it with the Think Dirty app. One of the most common places we get toxins from is our washing detergent. It's so toxic. So we then made the choice to go to more of an essential oil-based one from the company called doTERRA, but then you still get some mold in the washing machine, and we don't want any exposure to mold. So the thing you see in the top right-hand corner here is called an ozone cleaner. It's very simple. You attach it to the wall on a wall anchor. You hook your washing machine cables to it, the in and the out, and then you don't even need detergent. It cleans with ozone. It cleans your clothes better, and it will knock out any mold that's in the washing machine. It's amazing. It's $297. You get it on Amazon. And then down the bottom is an aluminum-free deodorant. That's a male one, although this company has some scents that females can use too. But there's a ton of great aluminum-free deodorants out there. Some work better than others. I love this Everyman Jack brand because it works so well. But we can't be putting metal, aluminum-filled things under our armpits, especially for the ladies. What's our number one cancer ladies deal with? It's breast cancer. Where's breast cancer going to drain to? The lymph nodes under our armpits. We can't be putting heavy metals into that area. It's so dangerous. So that's just a couple ways we can cut that down. So why is this important? Well, all these toxins and poor diet and drugs and all this other stuff create inflammation in our gastrointestinal tract. Now, gastrointestinal tract only has one cell layer thick lining in the wall, plus our microbiome in there to protect us. So we have these very tight junctions that you can see on this slide. And then when we get inflamed, those cells start to shrink and pull apart. Now we get these wide open junctions, which means all sorts of food particles and things get into our bloodstream that shouldn't be in there. That then creates food intolerances, which causes our immune system to attack itself. So now your guard dog at home is biting everyone that comes in, including you. That's not a good guard dog. And then that autoimmunity leads to all those symptoms you see on the right. And so it's so important that we heal the gut first to get all this inflammation out. So we go back to our tight junctions. So we only let in the things that we're designed to let in, and everything else passes out through our stools. and we detox properly. This is such a big deal that everyone needs to understand it. So the real truth is that inflammation drives everything for that reason. Inflammation causes the gut to blow up, and we get the leaky gut, and then all our health issues are driven by it. I don't care what it is. High cholesterol, it's not because you're lacking statins and medications. It's because of the gut. IBS, obviously the gut. Chronic fatigue, normally your thyroid's conking out, and your thyroid's conking out because your body's inflamed. And your body's inflamed because of leaky gut. It's all leaky gut. Diabetes, cancer. Now, cancer is not always gut. You can be exposed to something like asbestos, but again, it creates inflammation, and that creates the problem. Obesity, autoimmune, it's all one in the same. So what's the solution? Test, don't guess. We must get to the root cause of what's going on. No more guessing, no more cookie cutter approaches. Don't just throw medications at these things. We need to do simple but effective testing, because we have to find out, are there underlying infections? If so, what are they? Are there underlying toxins? If so, what are they? Because there's certain protocols to remove these things. And what deficiencies are going on, because we need to correct those deficiencies. It's all about doing the right testing. So this is one of my favorite cases of all. This is Ava. She's a 72-year-old. When she came to me, another one who on the surface you would have thought was super healthy. For 72, she would run rings around a lot of 50-year-olds. Looks healthy, clean diet, emotionally very sound, really healthy. But then she had a major emotional trauma. Her husband of however many decades passed away. This was in September last year. For 6 months, chronic diarrhea every day, sometimes double-digit amounts per day. As you can imagine, this left her exhausted. She couldn't sleep. She couldn't eat hardly anything without it running through her, chained to her house. So after decades of being healthy, she lost all hope for the future. So what happened? The emotional stress of her husband dying triggered her. So we know she had to have a lot of underlying things, and her healthy diet had kept it at bay. So if his threshold, she must have been living right here, and his death popped her over the threshold. It was the last straw that broke the camel's back, and her gut and overall health literally and figuratively gave out and crapped the bed. So the first thing I wanted to do with her was a stool test, which is the 2 slides you can see on the right, and some infection testing. On the left, you can see she had many infections, but one of which was Epstein-Barr virus, which is something you get once you've been infected with mono, and it literally sticks around in your body forever and creates a huge stress on your immune system. It's a nightmare, Epstein-Barr. When you get flare-ups from it, it really will kick your tail. And she also tested positive for parasites. So Toxoplasma gondii is one of many types of parasites she had or still has. It's a microscopic type, and she tested positive for that. Then when we look at her stool testing, everything on the right here, everything should be green, and she's got more reds than greens, showing all the problems with what she's absorbing and all the stress and inflammation that's going on within her gut. So that's just 2 of the many tests we did on her. But what that enabled us to do was get her on the right nutritional and supplement protocols. So after only 2 months, she was sleeping through the night. She'd found happiness and purpose again. She'd been having her first normal bowel movements after 6 to 8 months of being a prisoner, working out. So she was back to her normal self. Now, we're now at about 8 months of working together. She did have a regression with diarrhea, even though everything else was feeling better. And here's why. She had more parasites come out than anyone I've ever worked with. And while it sounds gross, we need them out because they're so damaging. Her biggest one was a 20-inch parasite. She counted in the first 26 days 135 parasites and 2,500 larva eggs. She's now at about 300 or 400 parasites. So you can see why her body was so stressed out, but she didn't know it. Now, she's lucky she'd lived so healthy from an external standpoint, because this stuff probably would have killed her years ago because of the inflammation levels. And when her body was expelling loads of parasites at one time, her body's natural inclination was to go to diarrhea just to get as much of it out as it can. Because when we have diarrhea, it's to expel viruses and other infections. And now, in amongst all that, though, everything else with her body was improving. And so even though there was diarrhea, it's a lot different to what she was having after her husband died. And that's the beauty of this. We knew what to expect because we did the right testing and we knew what we would find. So let's cut into the training for right now for a quick win for all of you to be able to detox immediately. How we start the day gets us off to a good footing. So I like a majority of people, unless you're pregnant or breastfeeding female, to do some kind of intermittent fasting. So to go somewhere between ideally 14 to 20 hours without eating, which means you're not having breakfast. But so that alone will help your body clean out and filter well. But if you do this, this won't break your fast, but this is a great way to get your body detoxing. So 8 ounces of clean filtered water. We never want to drink the garbage out of the tap. It's full of heavy metals and a bunch of other pesticides and toxins you don't want. Squeeze in half a lemon, a slice of ginger, and a dash of cinnamon. And this is just going to help your liver start to filtrate beautifully from the start, and your kidneys. Now, I recommend everyone start with 12 to 16 ounces of clean water every day anyway. So you could do 8 ounces of this and then another 8 ounces of just water, or you could do 16 of all of this if you want. But it's a great way to get a nice early win to get started. Now, we've barely scratched the surface on chemical stress. What we need to know about it is testing is the key. So if you're not sure what testing you should do, reach out to me, send me a message, send me an email, find me on any of my social media, and let's DM about what testing you should be doing, because it's the only way to truly know what's causing your poor gut and overall health. But then as we move into secret number 2, physical stress. A lot of people have no idea how much physical stress will create poor gut health. Here's why. If we're not moving enough, we'll have terrible lymphatic and bowel movements. We have 4 detox pathways in the body: our pee, our poop, our breath, and our skin, or essentially sweat. And in my opinion, it's the poop, the bowel movements, that will get rid of the majority of our toxins if it's functioning properly. Our lymphatic vessels are what remove a lot of the toxins in the sludge. That's why, in my mind, it's crazy that when people have cancer, they want to cut out your lymph nodes, because that's part of your lymphatic system that's going to help your body detox. But that's a whole nother webinar that we're going to do. So if we're not moving enough, we're going to get terrible lymphatic and bowel movements. So you have to move more. Now, we also don't want to do, and sitting does the same thing. It will block you up. We also don't want to move too much or do the wrong movement. So we don't want to keep doing the same exercise over and over and over and get strained. We don't want to exercise through injuries. We want to give our body a break. And that also means not lifting with improper form. So for the quick win here, let's remove a bunch of excuses right now. Lack of time is no longer an excuse for anyone who's on this training, because here's the deal. There was a really, really cool study done where they took middle-aged, middle health men. So these guys were all between about 30 and 50. None of them were jacked with an 8-pack, but none of them were obese. They put one group into a group that I think they exercised 3 times a week, maybe 4 times a week. I can't remember the exact number. But one group did an hour of steady state cardio. The other group did only 10 minutes. I think they were all on bikes, on stationary bikes. The group that did 10 minutes warmed up for 2 minutes, did 30 seconds as hard as they could, then slow pedaling for 1.5 minutes, then 30 seconds as hard as they could. Essentially, they did 2 minutes of flat out sprint in 10 minutes of exercise. The other group did an hour of steady state. At the end of it, the group that did the 2 minutes of intense had better markers in every which way. They dropped weight, they had less body fat, they had better blood pressure, better cholesterol. Off the charts, they won. It was amazing. So if you don't have time to go and I'm not saying don't go to the gym. It's a great thing to go and do. But if you don't have time, every single day, if you do 5 sets of 2-minute bursts, set an alarm on your phone every hour throughout the workday, for each hour for 5 hours, 2 minutes, jumping jacks, burpees, push-ups, whatever high-intense activity, body weight activity you want to do, squats, it is going to help you immensely. And it will break up all the stress from the sitting and everything else. So I don't want time to ever be an excuse again for you. And then secret number 3 is emotional stress. This is one that people either choose to ignore or because they don't want to confront or they don't know about it. The problem with emotional stress is this. When we're emotionally stressed, we go into a fight-flight response. It's a part of our nervous system called the sympathetic nervous system. Our adrenaline and all of that starts to course through our veins. It's what keeps us alive when we're under attack. Blood goes to our lungs, our heart, our brain, our eyes will dilate. Our blood pulls away from our superficial areas in our skin so we're not going to bleed out. And it goes to our powerful muscles so that we can run or fight. What loses blood and therefore doesn't function properly when we're in this state because we don't need it in a 20-second danger situation? Immune system, reproductive system, GI system. So if you're constantly in a stressed out state and constantly having adrenaline and cortisol and stress hormones floating around our body, which are highly toxic when they're there for longer than a short period, then your gut and your immune system isn't going to work properly. Neither is reproductive. So good luck trying to get pregnant and hold a pregnancy if your body's always stuck in this state. See, we just get out of balance with all of it because nervous system, immune system, hormones, gut are all intimately linked. So we have to activate our parasympathetic nervous system as often as possible. That's our rest and digest state. We have to do that frequently throughout the day. And so there's ways you can do that. Breathing is the best. I like box breathing. So here's the quick win with that. You just slowly breathe in through your nose as you count to 4. So literally it will be. Then you hold for 4 and then breathe out for 4. And then hold for 4. And you would do it a little slower than that. That will immediately slow your heart rate down. It's a really good idea to do that for 30 to 60 seconds before you eat, because when we eat, we don't want to be in a sympathetic fight-flight response. We want to be in a rest and digest response. So 30 to 60 seconds of breathing before we eat, so we're not eating on the go, that's going to help you immensely as well. So here's another case study that I love. This is another one-on-one client of mine, 26 years old. Speaking of not being able to hold pregnancies, her hormones are or were a mess. She would eat certain foods like red meat and feel instant nausea like she was going to vomit. Emotional and mood swings off the charts, especially during her cycle. And she'd wake up exhausted no matter how much sleep she had. And she literally had been to what she thought was every doctor under the sun. Now, as we look at her blood work, off her standard lipid panel, which most of your doctors will do, her cholesterol's up a little bit. Her LDL cholesterol's up fairly high. And her high sensitive C-reactive protein is in the moderate level. So definitely a lot of inflammation. Not good. Her AA-EPA, which we mentioned before, is so high it's off where they measure. So at 127, they stopped measuring it with this one. It's really high. Now, she was very infected with parasites amongst a bunch of other viruses and toxins. So her whole body was a mess because she was so infected and toxic. After only 2 months of us working together, because we knew what she was dealing with and we could target everything that we needed to target. So in only 2 months, she cleaned up her diet because she was able to eat anything without issue. So she can go and eat good quality grass-fed red meat and organ meat without an issue. Virtually no symptoms during menstruation. In fact, she said to me, she's had, and now a few months later, she's had 3 normal cycles for the first time in her life back to back, sleeping great, stress doesn't blow her up anymore. She's not pregnant yet, but I'm about to give her and her husband the green light to start trying because she should be able to hold a pregnancy just fine now because her gut's healing. So her hormones are going to heal. It's so amazing. So again, the quick win. How do we calm down emotional stress? We already talked about the box breathing, but just trying to meditate, things like that. Now, I hate meditating. I don't sit and do it well. So I have an app that walks me through it. I use the Insight Timer. The Calm app is really good too. Depending how I feel, I go and pick a 5 or a 10-minute guided one. And it forces me just to sit down and do box breathing while I listen to the meditation. It's not hard to do. I'll do it when I'm in my infrared sauna. Just do it at any time, but you need to do something to get you into that parasympathetic state. Writing in a gratitude journal is something I do every day. That helps me a lot. Maybe for you to be yoga or Pilates or finding a hobby that you love, and just give yourself permission to have fun. If you do all of these things, the emotional stress you suffer from will just get less and less. It's not going to go away. Life isn't going to get easier, but we get better. And that is how you're going to stop emotional stress being one of those three big stressors to you. Another thing that helps with emotional stress is essential oils. When my wife first introduced me to essential oils, I laughed at her. I thought it was garbage. And then I looked into some of the research that a company like doTERRA does, and it was amazing. And we've been using them for years. It's phenomenal. So if you deal with a lot of stress, diffuse or rub on lavender. If you've got a lot of anxiety or depression, orange is a good one. Headaches, when I can't get in and get adjusted and I have a headache, peppermint on the forehead or on your neck, it'll just knock it down till you go get rid of the cause. And DigestZen for your gut is amazing. Every time my 6-year-old was ever constipated when she was young, I'd adjust her. We'd rub DigestZen on her belly, and she would have a massive poop within 24 hours. For an adult, you can do a few drops into some water and shot it. It tastes like licorice, so I don't like the taste, but I'll do it if and it's not just constipated. I'll do it if my stomach's a bit sore because I ate a food I knew I shouldn't have eaten, but I wanted to eat it anyway. It's like a miracle cure. So as we recap these three secrets, the reason they're so important is because they form the base of the pyramid. If you don't get these right, then all the other tricks and tactics and strategies you use will do nothing for you because you won't have the base of the pyramid right. So we have to get rid of our toxins, infections, and fix our deficiencies. We have to move more and move correctly, and we must manage our emotional stress. So hopefully a lot of that makes sense to you. And at this point in time, really you've got two options. You can keep doing the same thing and keep getting the same result, or you can get to the root cause and get your life back. And so now I want to talk about how can you go and get to the root cause? Well, let's do a strategy session together. Let's spend 45 minutes together and help you get on the right path to do that. Now, who would be a good candidate to do a strategy session with me or someone like me? Well, basically someone who's sick of experiencing all these gut and poor health symptoms. Someone who wants a normal stomach, better sleep, lose weight, better mental clarity. If that's someone like you, let's get it scheduled now. What does it look like? We spend 45 minutes together. You'll go through a detailed health history for me before we get on Zoom together. We'll do a lifestyle and nutritional review. We'll uncover all the blind spots and get to the actual cause. I'll make any and all lab recommendations. We'll go over any labs you've had done in the last 6 months. And then that way, I'll be able to help you come up with a customized action plan to start healing your gut. In fact, after our discovery call, whether we work together any further or not, I always send a document that outlines a lot of my favorite health hacks on nutrition, sleep, exercise, detoxification, supplements, all of that. You get all of that in a strategy session with me. Now, if you're currently really happy with your health, but you're just always looking to learn new things, and that's why you join this webinar, then don't book the strategy session because you're not going to get anything out of it. But if you've got questions, you're concerned about your health, then you would. But if you're not ready to take any action, also don't waste your time and money doing a strategy session with me. So schedule today or tonight as you watch this webinar if you are concerned, you aren't happy with your health, and you are ready to take action now. So one of the bonuses you get, if you schedule a discovery call the week after doing this training, you'll get one of these free clean eating for gut health guides that I made. It took a lot of time and money for us to make this. It's a phenomenal little document. It'll give you a lot of great pointers just on, again, the fundamentals. That's what we focus on a lot, because if you don't get those right, the advanced strategies just aren't going to help you. So normally a strategy session with me would cost anywhere between $700 to $800 for an hour if we laid everything out. But of course, I'm not charging people that because it's not fair. It's not affordable. I wouldn't be able to help anyone. So it's only $97 to do that with me. And that's not one of these book it now before the price is going up. That's currently what it costs. I'm thinking of putting the price up soon because I'm starting to max out my calendar. but that's not happening yet. But right now, I can promise you, if you're doing this training, it's only $97 to do that strategy session with me. Now, here's another lady who I've worked with for a few months. Super healthy 60-year-old. And again, I say super healthy on the outside. She eats maybe one of the cleanest diets of anyone I've worked with, but still has a lot of gut issues, bloating, cramping, diarrhea. She's also had breast cancer in her past. She didn't go and do chemo and radiation. She survived using natural holistic protocols and has never had any spread or it come back. But again, we know if you have cancer, something has to have been wrong somewhere in your body and your immune system. She also struggles to put on weight, and especially muscle. She's another one that tested positive for parasites. The reason I keep sharing that is because almost everyone I work with, I'm starting to see in all the infections, parasites seem to be the common denominator. She also was quite high on her AA-EPA ratio at 70.2 when we want it to be under 11, even though her high-sensitive C-reactive protein was well in the normal range. So we created a customized plan. A month in, as you can read there, bowel habits were completely normal. Within 3 months, sleeping great, putting on a lot of muscle. She's now at about month 5 of working with me. We're almost wrapped up working together. She still sees a few parasites in her stools, but not much because we've cleaned a lot of them out. Her energy is just going through the roof. It's phenomenal. She's the grandma that she always wanted to be, but was struggling to be. And that's what I love to see. So something I want to remind people of, if you're not satisfied after doing a strategy session with me, if you feel like I didn't give you any good pointers or advice, I'll give you your $97 back. I never, either as a chiropractor, as a health coach, I've never wanted anyone to work with me and be disappointed. Now, we can't fix everything, and you might not like some of the recommendations I make. You might need some extensive labs. I feel like you can't afford those right now, that's fine, then go save up for them. But it's still my duty to make those recommendations for you. But if you just think it was a waste of time, I'll give you your money back. So you have 2 paths right now. What one are you going to take? Keep doing the same thing over and over and expect different results, basically insanity, or is it time to take action? Another happy client, I just like to throw these in for people to understand that there's so many people suffering like you are currently that so quickly have been able to turn it around. She said, I'm grateful to be alive. She's grateful she found me. She couldn't have got through this without it. Thank you from the bottom of my heart. We're going to get through this. I'm going to beat this. This is a lady who, again, was suffering from a lot of diarrhea, massive parasite infection. See, it's a lot of the similar story because a lot of people have a lot of the same things, but she had a lot more than just parasites. But her first couple months were a bit rough because there was so much stuff cleaning out of her body, and she's back in control. She's got 80% of her health back already 3-4 months into us working together. It's not always the result people will get, but more often than not, it is. So the goals of this strategy session, if you do it, is we need to identify what we think the root causes and barriers to good health are, and then make the recommendations and the action plan for you to be able to deal with that. We will then want to help you avoid any further chronic disease or illness and just get you feeling better and get your life back under control. So if you want to do it, you just click on the link that goes with this training. It'll take you to my page where you can book a call. It'll look like this. You literally just pick a time on the calendar that works for you. It'll help you get it all set up. And then we're off and running. And then you'll get sent a health history review immediately. Get that filled out 2 to 3 days before we meet so that I have time to look over it. We jump on Zoom together and we go through it. And so, while we can't promise this, there's a very good chance the strategy session will lead you to making changes that pretty quickly down the road, within 90 days, will mean more energy, less IBS and less bloating, lose 5 to 10 pounds, all that kind of stuff. If you could be guaranteed that would happen, you would do it, right? It literally costs less than a phone bill for a month to do something like this. I've made it this cheap so that people don't have to miss out. I want people to be able to afford to get their health back under control. So again, imagine you had a customized solution. You didn't have to pay all this money in the future on sickness bills. It's not really health bills. Have an accountability coach going side by side with you and helping stop you from making the same mistakes over and over. so that you can eventually learn to become your own doctor. That's what I want you to be able to do. But if you're not willing to take action, you're not going to get change. Here's a lady that we did some testing on, and she was very, very ill. A lot of inflammation. You can see with her white blood cell count on the right, she had all sorts of things off because her immune system was so jacked up. She had so many toxins and infections. Her AA-EPA ratio is at 114.6 when we want it to be under 11. She's got a few risk factors already with heart disease, and she's only 49. She had wasted so much money on other doctors that she couldn't really afford to work with me. The problem for her is going to be the longer she waits, the harder it's going to be to help her get it all right. See, she's only 49 and she already feels beaten up by her health. And that's what we're trying to avoid here. We have to get you healthy ASAP so that, because the longer it goes, the more time and money you have to invest. So if you're struggling with this bloating and stubborn belly fat and fatigue and joint pain and autoimmune issues and all of this stuff, let's get the strategy session booked. Again, I can't help you be healed in 45 minutes, but at least we can, you're faced with 57 different paths you could go down. I can point you to the one that's the right one and get you started. And then from there, you can start making the right actions and the right decisions and start learning the right things. You don't have to keep suffering. And remember, if you book it within a week of doing this training, you get the clean eating for gut health just as an extra freebie I want to throw in. And think about the value of this call. I should be charging $700-800 for it, but that's not going to help any of you. So it is only $97. You hit my calendar, you get on it. It is literally that easy. So please don't wait until it's too late. If you don't take action, don't expect change. And I know the slide says exclusive offer tonight only. You have a week after doing this training to be able to get in and take advantage of all the bonuses that come with this. But the problem is my calendar is filling up so much because I'm so busy with all the health coaching I do with group and one-on-one, and I still run multiple chiropractic clinics. I only have so much time to do discovery calls. So I can only fit a few of them in at a time. And the longer I book out, the longer it'll be for you to be able to get in with me. So again, I want you to think about your dream future. Imagine waking up feeling rested with energy. You're productive. You enjoy life. You don't feel the need to complain about anything anymore because you just feel like you get luckier because you're more vibrant, you have more energy, more opportunity comes to you. You're able to jump on those opportunities. You don't have joint pain. Your brain's working better. You have normal bowel movements. That shouldn't be the exception, but it is. That should be the normal for all of us. And believe me, unless you're in about a 1% to 2% population of people, it's possible for virtually all of you. And I don't want any of you to suffer. So let's do our personalized consultation strategy session together. You've got your 100% money back guarantee. You'll get the clean eating for gut health guide. Let's do it. I'm doing this because I don't want people to suffer. The $97 for 45 minutes is not a good use of my time, but not everyone can afford to work with me one-on-one. Not even everyone can afford to work with me in my group coaching program, which is way more affordable, which is less than $100 a month. So at least with the strategy session, we can get you on the right path. So thank you so much for sticking with me throughout the masterclass training tonight. I've got a few more I'm working on to releasing. I'm going to do one on parasites. I'm going to do another one on how to be metabolically healthy and metabolically flexible, because we know when you understand what metabolic health is, or good metabolic health, you'll then know how to truly stay healthy as well. It's the next building blocks on top of this training. So this is the base of the pyramid. Then we're going to talk about metabolic health, and especially dealing with parasites and how to know if you've probably got a parasite infection, how to test for it, how to get rid of them. So stay tuned for those masterclass events. In the meantime, follow me on social media, open my emails, because I'm trying to bring value all the time, trying to bring as much free value to you as I possibly can. I have a free Facebook group. It's called Trust Your Gut. Come and join it. You'll see the link at the bottom of every email I send. That's where I do a lot of other short trainings and share articles and research and stuff like that. I'm on TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, all of it, because I want to get as much health information out there as I can, because it's the best way for everyone to learn and take control of their own health. And if you do want to work with me on an actual basis, I do have that group coaching level and a one-on-one. Just shoot me a message if you're interested in those as well. But the more you learn from me, even from all my free resources, the more my mission gets to be lived out of wanting to help empower people to become their own doctor and be able to just get back to living the life they love. So thank you so much, and I'll see you again soon.